Urgent tone. Minaj sits on the floor of his bedroom, rapidly scratching illegible shapes into the plaster. He stares blankly at the wall, speaking in frantic, hushed whispers as he pleads for forgiveness from an empty room. His collapse followed a survival of a suicide attempt, but the roots of his state run deeper than a standard medical diagnosis. Minaj has fallen into a meticulously engineered trap. Only a few months ago, Minaj walked the world with total impunity. Armed with a fresh MBA and underwritten by his father's vast business wealth, he lived under the assumption that consequences applied exclusively to other people. Immense privilege acts as a blinder. It convinces a person they are immune to the fallout of their own cruelty, leaving them completely unprepared to recognize a snare. That financial safety net vanished overnight when his father finally cut off his allowance. Stripped of his leverage, Minaj scrambled to find an immediate source of income. Out of nowhere, he received an unsolicited offer to take over an internship at a finance firm. The referral came from Jyoti, a former college classmate he had repeatedly harassed and publicly humiliated during a drunken episode on campus. Any rational person would question why their former victim was suddenly acting as their career guardian angel, but the immediate panic of a $0 bank balance overrode his suspicion. He arrived at the new office to find a standard corporate floor plan, interrupted by a glaring anomaly. A single cabin at the back of the room was sealed shut, the doorframe tied tight with religious talismans and smeared with red vermilion. When survival instincts are aimed entirely at paying the next bill, basic self-preservation falls away. A person will gladly set up their desk directly adjacent to an environment clearly marked as dangerous. Driven to prove his worth, Minaj stayed late to finish a presentation. One by one, his colleagues logged off and went home, leaving him completely isolated on the corporate floor. The silence broke when a disembodied female voice drifted through the air, asking softly if he was tired. He turned around to find the open space completely empty. The sound had originated from behind the sealed door of the talisman cabin. He packed up and fled, assuming the distance would keep him safe. But a hostile presence doesn't respect the physical boundaries of a commercial lease. The terror followed him home. The lights in his bedroom flickered and died. He flipped the switch again to find total darkness, except for a faint glow illuminating a dark, feminine silhouette perched quietly at the foot of his bed. Stripping away the boundary between a haunted workplace and a personal sanctuary removes the target's ability to recover. Without a safe harbor to decompress, the mind remains trapped in an active state of terror. Severe sleep deprivation quickly destroyed Minaj's ability to function at his desk. His error rate spiked, his focus shattered, and his arrogant confidence evaporated entirely. This created a cruel feedback loop. To compensate for his failing output, his manager demanded he stay late to catch up on the backlog, forcing him right back into isolation. Sitting alone under the fluorescent lights, he heard the frantic clacking of a second keyboard echoing across the empty desks. Then came the heavy, aggressive knocking, pounding outward from the inside of the sealed cabin. The bindings securing the door snapped off. The heavy, protective talismans detached from the frame and hit the floor as the handle turned and the door creaked slowly open. The ghostly silhouette of a young woman materialized in the dark doorway. She didn't attack. She simply looked at him and asked, "Do you remember me?" True psychological torture finds its power in familiarity. The horror standing in the doorway derives its weight from the fact that it was born directly from Minaj's own suppressed actions. Months later, Minaj sits curled on his bedroom floor, his mind permanently fractured. The quiet is broken by an older woman standing in his doorway. She surveys the erratic drawings on his walls with tearful eyes. She introduces herself as Jyoti's mother, the architect who designed his entire descent into madness. This timeline tracks their two diverging lives. The public harassment Minaj subjected Jyoti to in college left deep psychological scars. While he moved forward, her trajectory spiraled downward, ending in her taking her own life inside that very corporate cabin. But the timeline didn't stop there. Jyoti's mother intercepted Minaj's desperate search for employment. She used her daughter's old corporate credentials to offer him the job, intentionally looping back and grabbing hold of his life, until she forcefully routed his path down to the exact location of her daughter's tragedy. This haunting was devoid of coincidence. It was a calculated karmic loop, weaponizing the trauma site against the man who originally set the tragedy in motion. Looking down at the shattered man, Jody's mother offers a hollow congratulation on his survival, mentions her forgiveness, and turns to walk out the door. Manoj is left sitting on his floor, paralyzed by his own mind. The mother's verbal pardon does absolutely nothing to repair the structural damage to his psyche. The supernatural entity didn't need to lay a finger on him. It merely acted as a mirror, forcing Manoj to confront the deep, rotting guilt he had buried to protect his own ego. A person can easily bypass the societal fallout of their cruelty by relying on wealth and distance. But no amount of privilege can allow someone to outrun the terrifying, inescapable architecture of their own conscience.